Hello everyone, my name is Oluwafemi Oluwadurotimi Popola. I am the author of a book called I Am Existence, which also happens to be the name of this podcast. So this is the I Am Existence podcast. So in this chapter, we're going to be looking at the misconception of light and darkness. In many religious circles and generally, even in science and physics, there's this concept that light and darkness are separate entities. I know that in some realms of the occult, they say that, light and darkness are separate, but they are interchangeable. You can't have one without the other and all of that stuff. There's an element of truth to that, just like there was an element of truth to what the devil said to Eve when he told her, if you eat this fruit, you will be like gods, knowing good and evil. What he said there was absolutely true. But what he conveniently left out was the fact that they were not supposed to know the difference between good and evil. They were not designed to handle that kind of knowledge. So they did get to know good and evil and became like gods. Even God said that, yes, they become like gods and they know good and evil. So what do we do now? Let's kick them out of the garden. So Satan wasn't lying there, but he left out that fundamental paradigm. Somebody said, if your conclusion is wrong, then you need to check your premise. So the premise was off, but the statement was true, the premise was off, and it just threw everything into chaos. So when we look at Genesis and we consider when God said, the Bible says that there was darkness upon the face of the deep and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And then what did God do next? The Bible says that God saw the light, that it was good, and he separated the darkness from the light. How do you separate something unless it's already intertwined? The law of physics that makes darkness and light came into play when God said separate the darkness from the light. But darkness and light are not intrinsically separate. In some realms of reality, in some realms of God's reality, there is no separation between darkness and light. But like we've discussed in previous chapters, God had a particular set of standards and expectation for his creation. The Bible says, you've made all things, and for your pleasure they are and were created. Now, does that mean that God cannot be displeased or he has no displeasure? No. But everything that was created for the pleasure of God. So when God said, separate the light from the darkness, the light is a representation of his pleasure. He knew that he was setting up this environment called earth for the pleasure of his creation. And he did not want them to experience darkness. Up until, and I think I talked about this in previous episode, up until Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison came up with the electric bulbs. Once it gets dark, everybody goes to bed. And human beings only operated in the light. Now you have neon lights, you have electric lights, you have all these LED lights and all of these things, and people can stay up all night and watch movies and do all of these things. You can leave the lights on, you can stay up, have a party, do whatever it is you want to do. But back in the days, once it gets dark, everyone goes to bed because that's the way we're designed to operate. And so God said, let us separate the light from the darkness, because he was creating an environment where in the daytime, when humanity is operating and all creation actually is operating, then there is light. And once the light goes out, then everything goes to bed. Today we have creatures like owls and things like that. And I think I mentioned somewhere else where I said that, owls were created for darkness. I want to correct that statement. I don't think anything was created for darkness. I believe that as a result of the fall, The same way lions began to eat other animals and tigers began to eat other animals, and they could only be fed by the death of something else, where death was never intended to be a part of our existence or our experience. The same way lions began to eat the carcass of other animals that they kill is the same way some of these nocturnal creatures converted from being creatures of light to being creatures of darkness. The Bible tells us that when there's a new heaven and a new earth, you see the child is playing by the hole of the cobra or the asp, and the lion will eat grass like the ox. That's the way they were designed to be. They're not designed to kill one another for meat. So darkness and light are intrinsically in God's realm of existence. There is no separation. That does not mean that we are now to say we want to embrace darkness, because like I said, we were not designed for it. People have gone into all kinds of error, believing that light and darkness, there needs to be some kind of balance, and there needs to be a good amount of balance of light and darkness and all of that stuff. Not for our experience, not for the human experience, not for the experience of creation, because creation was designed to bring him pleasure, and light is a manifestation of that pleasure. Darkness is not. When Lucifer fell, imagine a big house with lights everywhere. There's everything going on. It's all fantastic. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. And you have this steward that's in charge of everything, and there's always food, there's always music, there's always things going on and all of that stuff. But there's this section of the house where, you know, the trash, when the trash is kept, when everything has happened and all that stuff, you move the trash to that section. And then for some reason the steward is found unfaithful, and so the master of the house reassigns him from being the grand steward over the entire house to being the steward of that little dingy section of sewage and trash. And all the devil is trying to do is to entice people and get them to say, hey, look, you guys are in this house and all that stuff. This place is much more enticing than all this place that you have. It's much better. You can come over here and have fun. You can do whatever you want and do all of that stuff. So he is not a separate entity from. Sometimes people have this idea that God is on one side, Satan is on one side, and then there's a tug of war between the two of them. No, nothing exists outside of God. Darkness is an expression of his displeasure. Now, the reason why I want to distinguish between darkness and evil, because that is another place where people throw these things around all the time. Sin, evil, darkness is all the same and all of that stuff. No, they're all completely different things. Darkness is a manifestation of God's displeasure. Evil is experiencing that displeasure when you were never intended to experience it. And God, having Satan in darkness is evil. But let me blow your minds here. God's final judgment for Satan is not evil. The Bible says in the book of Matthew chapter 25 that Jesus was speaking a parable. He spoke 3 parables in that chapter, and in one of the parables he said, depart from me. When he was speaking about the parable of the sheep and the goats, depart from me, you cursed, into everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. Now, people think about hell and they're thinking about a place of torment and all of that stuff. Well, what did God say hell was designed for? Hell was a place of fire prepared for the devil and his angels. Now, what is the devil? If you read the book of Ezekiel, I believe it is, the Bible lets us understand that the devil, or Lucifer, was a seraph, a seraphim. Satan was a creature of fire. Seraphim literally means a fiery snake. So God is taking Satan from a place of evil and darkness where he is right now to a place designed for him and his fellow seraph. The unfortunate people who are going to be there, not by design, are those who choose to go with Satan into his eternal home. But God prepared a place of fire for a creature of fire. He prepared a place of earth for a creature of earth. A lot of Christians even believe that when we die, we go to heaven and we stay with God forever. No. Heaven is a holding place. All of this is transitory. The earth has been corrupted and is now transitory for a location in heaven, which is also transitory, because the Bible tells us in the book of Revelations that God is going to destroy everything, the earth and the heavens, and is going to create a new earth, and we are all going to come back here. We are not designed to live in heaven. We are designed for earth. And when this whole mess is done with, God is going to bring us back here. And Jesus Christ is going to be back here because he is now a man. And so he's a creature of earth, and he's going to live here in the midst of us. And that's the reason why the Bible tells us he's going to rule from Jerusalem. He's going to literally be living on earth. So all of these things is to let us know that some of these distinctions that we make between light and darkness, good and evil, are not one. You can't just interchange one concept for another. They're all very different. And once you begin to draw those distinctions, then you have a much better understanding. Secondly, there is no contest between God and the devil. It's not just because God is powerful and God is more powerful than Satan, or God passed them. No. Satan has no authority. He has no intrinsic ownership of anything. He is just a steward, stewarding something that God never intended for any of his creations to steward. And that is a temporary position that he's holding until the final judgment comes. So that will be all for today on today's episode. If you're interested in learning a little bit more, you can purchase the book on Amazon. You can just do an Amazon search for I Am Existence by Oluwafemi Oluwadrotimi Popola. In the next chapter, we are going to be discussing what it means to be victorious as believers. And I'm looking forward to seeing you there.